What have you not done to me, Ugochi? That should be the real question. She spat back, her voice sharp and angry. You took all the beauty. You were everyone's sweetheart, and still I was okay with it. All these years, I've walked in your shadow, hidden and overlooked, while everything was always about you. In the beautiful and peaceful kingdom of Ogu, there was a lovely widow named Adanne. Adanne was known all over the village for her kind heart and her two beautiful daughters, Ugochi and Oluchi. These two sisters were not just sisters, they were the best of friends. Everyone could see how close they were. From the time they were little, they did everything together, whether they were fetching water from the clear, cold stream, gathering sticks for firewood in the forest, or cooking delicious meals in the kitchen. They were always side by side. They would talk and laugh loudly, that even the birds would stop to listen. Their laughter filled their small home with so much happiness that it warmed their mother's heart. Adanne felt so proud and blessed because she had worked very hard to raise her children well, and she loved seeing how much they cared for each other. But it wasn't just Adanne who loved the bond between Ugochi and Oluchi. The entire village admired them too. The people called them Umwejima, which means twins, even though Oluchi was actually older than Ugochi. When other children would argue or fight, their parents would say, "Why can't you be like Adanne's daughters, Oluchi and Ugochi? Have you ever seen them fight or say mean things to each other? They care for each other deeply, and that's how all brothers and sisters should be." The villagers would say this to teach their own children about love and kindness. However, even though the sisters were very close, the villagers seemed to love Ugochi more. She had a cheerful spirit and was always friendly, greeting everyone with a smile that could brighten the dullest moments. She had a special way of making everyone feel important, whether it was an elderly woman or a small child. People would often stop and admire her beauty. Her smile was the brightest anyone had seen. When she passed by, the villagers would whisper and say kind things about her, and this made Ugochi feel special. But Oluchi, though she was just as beautiful in her own way, often felt a little sad inside. She loved her sister dearly, but sometimes she felt like a shadow standing next to the glowing light. Even though she was older, she often felt overlooked and wished she could be noticed as much as her sister. Still, she never let these feelings change the way she felt about Ugochi. Oluchi always showed her love, even when her heart felt a little heavy. Oluchi was not known to be as friendly as Ugochi, but she was known as one of the best dancers in the whole village. Whenever there was a festival or celebration, whether in their own kingdom or in a neighboring one, Oluchi was always the one to lead the maidens in dance. She would move with such grace and energy that everyone would stop to watch, clapping their hands and cheering her on. Her feet seemed to glide over the ground, her hands moved like they were parts of the wind, and her smile would light up her face like the moon in the night sky. People would talk about Oluchi's dancing for days after each festival, saying she danced like she had a spirit of joy inside her. Meanwhile, her sister Ugochi loved making beads. She would sit for hours threading colorful beads onto strings to make necklaces, bracelets, and waistbands. Her fingers moved quickly and skillfully, creating beautiful patterns that would catch the eye of anyone who saw them. Both girls were very hardworking, always finding ways to help and support their mother, whether it was by dancing, making beads, or doing chores around the house. The two girls were both special and talented, but Oluchi lived her life, always trying to prove that she was better than her younger sister. As the years went by, both Oluchi and Ugochi grew into beautiful maidens, ready for marriage. Men began to come to their house asking to marry one of them. Every day, suitors would come with gifts, hoping to win a bride. But to Oluchi's great disappointment, they all seemed to be interested in Ugochi. They would come with wide smiles and eager eyes, looking for Ugochi, and Oluchi would sit quietly in the kitchen, preparing food for the guests, feeling like she was invincible. She was the older sister after all. Shouldn't she be married first? But not one man had come to ask for her hand in marriage. Oh, wait. There was one man who came once. His name was Otukpo, and he was known all over the village as a drunkard. Otukpo already had 5 wives, and everyone knew he was always looking for trouble. When he came to ask for Oluchi's hand, she felt her blood boil with anger. She stormed into the kitchen, grabbed a pot of boiling water, and was just about to throw it at him when her mother and sister quickly stopped her. "Why?" Oluchi cried out, her voice filled with pain. "Why won't a good, decent man from this village come and ask for my hand in marriage? Why does everyone only want Ugochi and not me?" She would sob whenever she found herself alone, tears streaming down her cheeks. With each passing day, Oluchi grew sadder. She felt like her heart was carrying a heavy stone. She didn't understand why no one saw her worth, why no one noticed her or asked for her hand in marriage. The more she thought about it, the more she felt like a dark cloud was settling over her once bright spirit. Once, when she was much younger, Oluchi had fallen deeply in love with a very handsome man from a neighboring kingdom. It happened during one of those grand festivals, when she went there to dance with other maidens. As she danced, spinning and twirling with all her heart, she noticed a young man watching her from the crowd. His eyes never left her, following her every move. While everyone else clapped and cheered, his gaze seemed different, almost like he was seeing only her. After the performance, he had walked up straight to her with a big smile on his face. "You're so beautiful," he said warmly. Oluchi felt her cheeks warm up and her heart began to beat faster. That was all it took, and just like that, she fell in love. They met several times after that day. Whenever Oluchi saw him, her heart would flutter like a bird's wings. They spent time together, talking and laughing, enjoying each other's company. She loved how he made her feel special, and she dreamed of a future with him. But then, one day he vanished. He disappeared without a word, without a goodbye. Oluchi waited and waited, but he never returned. She would sit by the window, hoping to see him walk up the path again, but he never did. It was as if he had just vanished into thin air, and it shattered her heart into a tiny 1,000 pieces. She cried for days, her tears soaking her pillow every night. She had loved him so dearly, and it hurt so much to lose him without even knowing why. After many weeks, she decided she had to move on. She tried to put the pieces of her broken heart back together, but that had been years ago. Since then, no one else had shown interest in her or come to ask for her hand in marriage. Oluchi would watch as her sister Ugochi gently turned away suitors who came for her hand in marriage. "I'm sorry, but I wouldn't want to be with you," Ugochi would say with a sweet smile, sending them off kindly. Oluchi would stand by, her heart aching, wishing that just one of those men would look her way. She hoped they would notice her standing there, quietly waiting, but they would leave without even glancing at her. All Oluchi wanted was to get married before her younger sister. She didn't want to feel left behind. Every day, she wished and prayed for a suitor who would see her, truly see her and choose her. But so far, all she had were dreams and a heavy heart. One evening, Ugochi came back from the market with a big smile on her face, her eyes sparkling with excitement. As she and Oluchi started preparing dinner together, Oluchi couldn't help but notice how happy her sister seemed to be. Ugochi was practically bouncing around the kitchen, humming a cheerful tune, and Oluchi kept stealing glances at her, wondering what had made her so happy. She had never seen her sister this excited before. Finally, Oluchi couldn't hold back her curiosity any longer. "Do you care to tell me why you are so excited?" she asked, raising an eyebrow playfully at her sister. Ugochi giggled and said, "Well, why don't you guess?" Oluchi rolled her eyes and laughed. "You know I'm terrible at guessing, so why don't you just tell me? Or do you not want me to share in your joy?" she teased, giving her sister a light nudge with her elbow. Both sisters burst into laughter, their giggles filling the kitchen. After a moment, Ugochi took a deep breath and said, Okay, so I met this very handsome man at the market today, and I think I like him a lot." Ugochi's smile grew even wider and her cheeks turned a little pink. Ugochi's smile was always so bright and contagious, and Oluchi couldn't help but smile back at her. She felt a flutter of happiness for her sister. "I'm so happy for you," Oluchi said sincerely. "So, where is he from?" "He's from Ebenabo and neighboring kingdom," Ugochi replied, her voice filled with excitement. Oluchi raised her eyebrows and laughed softly. "So, it looks like someone finally gets to settle down," she teased. "Why don't you tell me more about him?" And so, they continued to chatter as they prepared dinner. Ugochi talked about everything she knew about the handsome man, the one she had just met. The way he had smiled at her, the friendly way he spoke, and how he had made her heart skip a beat. Oluchi listened with a smile on her face, happy to see her sister so excited. For that moment, the kitchen was filled with laughter, sisterly love, and dreams of what the future might hold. Chima, a wealthy trader from the neighboring kingdom of Ebenabo, had won Ugochi's heart completely. Ugochi loved him more than she had loved anyone before. There was something special about Chima that made him different from all the other suitors who had come to ask for her hand in marriage. He was genuine and honest, always being himself, never trying to impress her with fake words or grand promises. Ugochi loved how he appreciated her for more than just her looks. He admired her craft of bead making, which she was so proud of. At the market, he couldn't stop praising her beautiful beads, and he bought many of them for his mother and siblings. Chima lived in the city far away and only visited his village from time to time. It was during one of these visits that he met Ugochi at the market. He had been instantly drawn to her, and since then, their love story had begun. Their love was like a beautiful song, full of sweet notes and joyful melodies. In the evenings, they would meet and spend hours together, talking, laughing, and sharing their dreams for the future. They had a special meeting place, a small mountain with a stunning view of the sunset, where the sky looked like it was painted with orange, pink, and purple. They would sit there side by side, enjoying the fresh breeze, and talk about everything under the sun. Chima would tell Ugochi all about the bustling city where he lived, with its tall buildings, busy streets, and bright lights. Ugochi loved hearing these stories, her eyes lighting up with excitement. "I would love to see the city one day," she always said with a dreamy smile, and Chima would promise her, "I will definitely take you there, my love." They were both so in love, and it felt like nothing in the world could come between them. Chima was a trader in Lagos, and he was doing very well. He had left his village many years ago to learn a trade and had worked hard to start his own business. Now, everything was going great for him, and he decided it was time to return to his village and find a wife. That was how he met Ugochi. From the moment he saw her, he knew she was the one. She was everything he had ever dreamed of in a woman: kind, beautiful, and full of life. She made him happier than he had ever been. Every moment they spent together felt like a gift, filled with laughter, joy, and endless happiness. Ugochi was a true bundle of joy, always so cheerful and full of energy, bringing light into Chima's life. Whenever Ugochi returned from her outings with Chima, she would eagerly share the stories Chima usually told her with her sister Oluchi, hoping to see her smile or laugh. But she noticed that Oluchi didn't seem excited about the stories. Oluchi would just nod quietly, barely saying a word. This began to worry Ugochi. She wondered if something was bothering Oluchi or if she was feeling unwell. She couldn't quite figure out what was wrong. The more she thought about it, the more confused she became, unable to understand why her sister seemed so distant. One evening, Ugochi came home rushing, her face glowing with excitement. Her voice was so loud with joy that even the birds flew off their branches. Oluchi was sitting in front of their hut, carefully mending one of her dresses with a needle and thread. She looked up and saw her sister twirling around, doing a little dance, her feet tapping the ground happily. Ugochi always danced like this when she had some big news to share, and Oluchi's heart began to beat faster, wondering what could be making her sister so happy. "What has happened?" Oluchi asked, her eyes wide with curiosity. She was eager to hear the news, hoping it was something good. Ugochi's eyes sparkled as she flashed a tiny ring right in front of Oluchi's face. He asked me to marry him, Ugochi shouted, almost jumping with joy. Oluchi's heart stopped for a moment. Her hands went still, and the needle slipped from her fingers. She felt a cold wave wash over her. This was the news she had been dreading. She had always thought she would be the one to marry first, being the older sister, but now this news came as a shock. She had heard so much about this man, Chima. The way Ugochi talked about him, the stories, the laughter, the love in her eyes. She knew how deeply her sister loved him, and that they were both madly in love with each other. But despite all this, Oluchi couldn't hide the sadness in her heart. Ugochi of course noticed it right away. "What is it, Oluchi?" she asked softly, her smile fading away. "Are you not happy for me? I thought you would be happy." Oluchi forced a smile onto her face, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I'm happy, my sister," she said, her voice trembling just a bit. "It's just that I didn't expect it. I feel like you're leaving me already." Ugochi quickly moved closer and wrapped her arms around her sister in a warm hug. "I'm not leaving you, Oluchi," she whispered gently. "We will always be together, and not even marriage can take me away from you. You are my sister, my best friend, and nothing will ever change that." Oluchi nodded, trying to hold back her tears, but her heart felt heavy like a stone. She watched as Ugochi skipped away, heading off to find their mother and share the happy news. The moment Ugochi was out of sight, tears rolled down Oluchi's cheeks, hot and fast. She felt so sad. Sad because her sister seemed so much luckier than she was. Sad because Ugochi always got what she wanted, while she felt like she was always left behind, standing in the shadows. A few weeks later, Chima came with his kinsmen to formally ask for Ugochi's hand in marriage. The day had come for the official introduction, and there was an air of excitement around the hut. Oluchi was in the kitchen preparing food for their guests. Even though her heart was heavy with sadness, she had decided to accept her fate. She knew that this was her sister's special day and didn't want anyone to notice her pain or ask if she was alright. She forced herself to smile, chopping vegetables and stirring the soup, pretending everything was fine. Ugochi, meanwhile, was inside getting dressed in her finest clothes. She looked radiant, her face glowing with happiness. She was eager to meet Chima and his family. Soon, Oluchi heard voices outside the hut. Their mother Adenne came quickly into the kitchen, her face bright with excitement. "Nne, bring the cola," she called out to Oluchi. "Our in-laws are here." Oluchi took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. She placed the kola nut carefully on the wooden plate and carried it out to the visitors. But when she reached the doorway and saw who was there, her heart stopped. She froze instantly, standing there as a statue, her eyes wide with shock. For a moment, she didn't seem to see anyone at all, and tears began to fill her eyes. She could barely hold herself together. Finally, her hands trembling, she managed to set the plates down and then turned and ran. She ran as fast as she could, her feet pounding against the ground until she could run no more. She found herself on a small mountain, overlooking the village, feeling lost and alone. She sat down and the tears began to pour out like a river. She sobbed bitterly, letting out all the pain that had been building inside her for so long. "Oh gods of our land," she cried, her voice breaking. "Why has life been so cruel to me? Why does she get everything while I get nothing? Everyone loves her, but no one even notices me. Is she more beautiful than I am? What does she have that I don't have? Why is she always the lucky one?" Her body shook with sobs and her heart felt like it was breaking into pieces. "Ugochi, why did you have to go this far this time?" Her voice was filled with pain and confusion. Slowly, anger began to replace the sadness. A new deep hatred started to grow inside her, like a dark cloud covering her heart. As the sun set and darkness began to creep over the forest, Oluchi knew she had to go back home, even though she didn't want to. She wiped her tears and slowly walked back, her steps heavy with sorrow. When she reached the house, everything was quiet. She slipped into their hut as quietly as a shadow, not saying a word to anyone. Her heart was filled with a new bitterness, and she kept all her feelings locked deep inside, like a secret she could never share. The next morning, Oluchi and Ugochi walked side by side down the narrow path that led to the stream, their feet brushing against the dew-covered grass. The air was fresh, but the silence between them was heavy, almost like a thick fog. Usually, they would chat and laugh as they went, but today was different. Ugochi felt a sting in her heart. She was hurt that Oluchi had suddenly disappeared on her special day, the day Chima and his kinsmen had come to ask for her hand in marriage. She had always believed that her sister would be there for her, to share in her moments of joy and sadness. For a while now, she had noticed that Oluchi seemed distant and cold, but she couldn't understand why. Wasn't she supposed to be happy for me? Ugochi wondered. What could be wrong? The silence between them was unbearable, and every step felt heavier than the last. Ugochi's heart was pounding in her chest. She knew she had to say something. She couldn't stand the quiet any longer. Finally, she took a deep breath and spoke, her voice soft but firm. "Oluchi, are you not happy for me?" she asked, her words trembling a little. "What is wrong? Did I do something to offend you?" Oluchi stopped walking and turned to face her sister. Her eyes were dark with anger and pain. "Why do you pretend like everything is fine?" she snapped. "I have lived in your shadows all these years and no one ever sees me. Do you know how painful that is? Do you know how much it hurts me every single day? And now, you are getting married, leaving me here in the village while you go off to enjoy life in the city." Ugochi felt her heart break at her sister's words. She reached out and held Oluchi's hands, her own eyes filling with tears. "I'm so sorry, Oluchi," she whispered, her voice shaking. "I never knew you felt this way. I never wanted to make you feel like you were less of me. I want you to know that you are beautiful and your time will come. I promise I will never leave you behind. If you want to come to the city with me, you can. Who knows, maybe your own Prince Charming is waiting for you there." Oluchi listened to her sister's words, but she couldn't bring herself to look at Ugochi's face. It's easy to give advice when you are not the one suffering, she thought bitterly. They continued their walk to the stream in a heavy, uncomfortable silence, each lost in their own thoughts. Oluchi felt a tightness in her chest, and deep down she knew things between them would never be the same again. That same night, Oluchi's mother called her to sit outside under the clear starlit sky. The air was cool and the stars sparkled above them like tiny diamonds. Her mother looked closely at Oluchi, searching her face as if she could read all the worries hidden in her heart. After a long silence, she spoke gently, her voice soft but filled with wisdom. Our people say that he who tries to overtake his chi will only outrun himself. Her mother began. Life does not offer the same gifts to everyone, but it doesn't mean that the first to start the race is the one who wins. I do not need to ask you what is wrong, Oluchi, because I am your mother. I see your pain and I understand it. I have watched you and your sister grow together, always so close like two halves of the same whole. But my dear, don't let this feeling of yours grow inside and destroy the bond you two share. I love you both so much, and I promise you, if you are patient, your own happiness will come. Her mother paused for a moment, then continued softly. Why don't you try to soften your heart a bit? Smile more like your sister does. Don't you think that maybe men are afraid to come close to you when you always seem angry all the time? Oluchi felt her chest tighten with frustration. There it was again, her sister Ugochi. The perfect one, the one everyone loved, the one she had to be like if she ever hoped to get married. So now, I need to act like my sister just to find a husband, Oluchi thought bitterly. This whole conversation was becoming more and more upsetting. Why couldn't her mother just talk to her without comparing her to Ugochi? Oluchi forced a smile and thanked her mother, but inside, her heart felt heavy and hot. She quietly got up and walked back to the hut, feeling even more confused and alone. Her mother watched her go, her eyes filled with worry. She stayed outside looking up at the stars, silently praying for both of her daughters. A few weeks later, Ugochi had a grand traditional marriage ceremony and became the wife of Chima. The whole village of Ebenabo was filled with joy, music, and dancing. Ugochi looked stunning in her beautiful attire, and everyone admired her as she moved gracefully through the ceremony. After the marriage, she moved to Chima's kingdom, getting ready to travel to the city with her husband. Ugochi knew that her sister Oluchi would miss her deeply, or at least she thought so. So, before she and Chima left for the city, Ugochi decided to come back home one last time to say goodbye. She hugged Oluchi tightly, promising to come back and get her when she settled in the city. But after Ugochi left, things in the village felt different. Time seemed to move slowly, like a river stuck in mud. Oluchi became sadder and more distant with each passing day. People in the village whispered that she was no longer the same. She had always been known for being quiet and not friendly, but now it seemed worse. Oluchi hardly went out anymore, and when she did, she wouldn't greet anyone. She would just walk past with a frown on her face. She even stopped dancing too, claiming that most of her age mates were already married and that she didn't want to dance with girls who were younger than her. The maidens tried to cheer her up and asked her to join them, but she refused every time. Soon, people in the village began to avoid her, thinking she was too difficult to be around. One day, as Oluchi walked to the stream to fetch water, she heard a group of girls nearby whispering and giggling. She kept her head down, trying to ignore them. But then she heard one of them say something that made her ears prick up. What's even wrong with her? Since her sister left, she's been acting so strange, one of the girls whispered. Another girl quickly added, of course, maybe she's bitter because her younger sister got married before her. Why wouldn't Ugochi marry first? Another girl chimed in, her voice full of mockery. Ugochi is a village sweetheart. She's so kind and friendly. But this one, she pointed towards Oluchi, is always walking around with that squeezed ugly face of hers. At those words, something inside Oluchi snapped. She could feel her anger rising like a storm inside her chest. She turned around, her eyes blazing with fury, and marched straight towards the girl who had just spoken. And what did you just say? Oluchi shouted, her voice shaking with rage. Are you crazy? She pushed the girl hard, letting out all the anger she had been holding in for so long. The girl screamed, and soon there was a commotion as they began to fight, pulling each other's hair and shouting loudly. The other maidens quickly jumped in and tried to separate them, but Oluchi's anger was like a fire that wouldn't go out. When Adanne, their mother, heard that Oluchi had fought with another girl at the stream, her heart sank with worry. It's been months since Ugochi left for the city with her husband, and Oluchi had become someone else, someone she could barely recognize. She had tried speaking to her many times, hoping to comfort her, but nothing seemed to work. Finally, she decided to call Ugochi and tell her about Oluchi's strange and troubling behavior. Ugochi listened quietly to her mother, feeling sadness in her heart. I know Oluchi is feeling lonely in the village, Mama, she replied. I have spoken to my husband about it. At first, he didn't agree, but I've managed to convince him. I think it would be best if I brought Oluchi to the city to live with me. But Adanne shook her head, disagreeing. No, Ugochi, I understand how you feel, but I have to agree with your husband. I don't think it's a good idea to bring your sister to live with you right now. Maybe it would be better if you just spoke to her. Ugochi smiled softly, trying to reassure her mother. Mama, don't worry. We'll be fine. There are many hardworking men in the city. Who knows, maybe Oluchi will find Mr. Right there. Adanne sighed deeply, feeling uncertain but trusting her daughter's decision. When Oluchi heard about her sister's plan from her mother, she felt a surge of joy. Finally, she was leaving the village, getting away from the prying eyes of those villagers who always seemed to think that Ugochi was better than her. She smiled to herself, feeling a sense of relief and excitement she hadn't felt in a long time. Maybe, just maybe, things were about to change for the better. Chima was waiting at the park to pick up Oluchi. As she stepped off the bus, she spotted him right away. He was leaning against a shiny car, looking neat and well-dressed. Oluchi felt a small pang of surprise. She hadn't known that Chima had a car, and he looked even more handsome than she remembered. As far back as she could recall, Chima had always been good-looking, but seeing him now made something inside her twist with emotions. They exchanged polite good afternoons when they first met, but after that, the car ride was filled with silence. The only sounds were the humming of the engine and the occasional rustle of leaves outside. Oluchi sat quietly, glancing out of the window, her heart heavy with thoughts she couldn't express. When the car finally stopped in front of a beautiful duplex, her mouth dropped open in disbelief. Was this where Chima and Ugochi lived? It was so grand, so perfect. A fresh wave of anger and jealousy washed over her. Why did Ugochi get all this? Ugochi stood at the door, her face bright with joy as she saw Oluchi stepping out of the car. It had been so long since they last saw each other, and Ugochi felt a rush of happiness to see her sister again. She ran forward and gave Oluchi a big hug. They seemed happy to reunite, but inside, Oluchi's heart was boiling with anger she couldn't show. Ugochi had prepared a special meal for her sister, dishes that she knew Oluchi loved. She couldn't wait to sit down and catch up on all the things that had happened in the village since she left. "Come inside, Oluchi. I've made all your favorite dishes," Ugochi said cheerfully, guiding her sister into the lovely warm home. Chima hurried off, saying he had some things to finish at the market, leaving the two sisters alone. They sat down to eat and Ugochi began chatting away, sharing stories about life in the city. She talked about all the new things she was learning and the people she had met. "I can't even hide it. I'm so happy you're here," Ugochi said, her eyes shining. "Chima is the sweetest man on earth and I feel so blessed to be married to him." Oluchi forced a smile, nodding. "I'm happy for you," she replied, but her voice sounded distant and her smile didn't reach her eyes. That night, as Oluchi lay in the bed Ugochi had prepared for her, she couldn't stop thinking. The room was beautiful, decorated with fine curtains and soft pillows. Everything looked so perfect and cozy. She stared at the ceiling, her mind racing. This should have been mine, she thought bitterly. All of this house, this life, it should have been mine. A heavy sadness filled her heart, mixing with anger and jealousy, until finally her tired eyes closed and she drifted into an uneasy sleep, her mind still filled with thoughts she couldn't silence. Weeks flew by and Oluchi was finally settling into the city. Her sister Ugochi made everything easy for her. She took Oluchi around, showing her all the interesting places, the busy markets, the beautiful parks, and the fun spots where people went to relax. They laughed and talked, like they always had, and for a little while, it felt like old times. Ugochi was so happy to have her sister close again. She had missed her so much. Ugochi owned a small shop in the city where she sold beads and jewelry, and Oluchi often went with her to the shop instead of staying home and doing nothing. She enjoyed being there, watching the customers come and go and sometimes even helping out. It felt good to be busy and to learn something new. One sunny afternoon, while Oluchi was at the shop with her sister, a handsome man walked in. He was looking to buy a wristwatch, but as soon as he saw Oluchi, his eyes lit up and he seemed to forget about the watch entirely. He couldn't stop glancing at her, and Oluchi noticed this right away. She liked the way he looked at her and she smiled back, feeling a spark of excitement. The man looked well dressed and seemed wealthy, and Oluchi thought to herself, Who knows? Maybe he's even richer than Chima. She began to imagine getting married to him, her heart fluttering with hope. She also remembered that her sister had not yet conceived a child for Chima, and she thought, maybe I'll have a child before her. A small laugh escaped her lips as she remembered her mother's old saying, "It's not always the first to run that wins the race." Ugochi may have started the race, but that doesn't mean she was going to win, Oluchi thought. The man, whose name was Caleb, struck up a conversation with Oluchi. They talked and laughed as if they had known each other for a long time. Caleb seemed captivated by Oluchi's beauty and her lively spirit, and soon enough, they began going on dates. Oluchi became happier than she had been in a long time, and she couldn't stop talking about Caleb. Her sister Ugochi was genuinely happy for her. "You see," she said with a smile, "I told you your Mr. Right was right here in the city." Caleb was a sweet gentleman and worked as a contractor. He was very caring, always buying Oluchi gifts and spending time with her. It felt like they were meant to be together, like they had been waiting for each other all along. Weeks passed and they grew closer, sharing stories and dreams. But as time went on, Oluchi began to worry. Chima had asked Ugochi to marry him just a few weeks after they met, but Caleb hadn't mentioned anything about marriage yet. Every time they talked, Oluchi tried to drop hints. She talked about wedding dresses, how many guests she would invite to her ceremony, and how many children she wanted. But Caleb would just smile and change the subject. One day, he asked her a simple question. "Where do you see yourself in 5 years?" Oluchi didn't hesitate. For real, she had had that answer all her life. So she replied, "In 5 years, I want to be your wife and have at least 3 kids with you." Caleb's smile faltered for a moment, and he felt a bit uncomfortable. He loved Oluchi, but something about her answer worried him. He felt like she had no plans for herself outside becoming his wife. Whenever they talked about anything, she would always find a way to bring the conversation back to weddings, children, and their future together. It seemed like she had put all her hopes and dreams into marrying him, and he wasn't sure how he felt about that. Caleb wanted to know more about her true desires, her ambitions, and what she wanted to achieve beyond marriage. He wanted to be with someone who had dreams of their own, someone who saw their future as more than just being a wife. Now, he found himself questioning whether Oluchi was the right person for him, even though he cared deeply for her. He needed to understand if her love for him was genuine or just a means to an end. One evening, Oluchi and Caleb were having dinner at a cozy restaurant. The lights were dim and soft music played in the background, but Oluchi's mind was racing with thoughts. As Caleb talked about his day, Oluchi reached into her bag, her fingers nervously searching for something. She took a deep breath, then pulled out a small ring box. Her heart was pounding, but she felt like this was her chance to make things right. She gently took Caleb's hand, and to his surprise, she got down on one knee. "I know you've been wanting to ask me to marry you," she began, her voice shaking a little. "I understand it's hard for you because you are shy. So, I'm here on my knees asking you, will you marry me?" Caleb stared at her, completely shocked. His eyes were wide open, and for a moment he couldn't find any words. What he finally managed to say. "Are you crazy?" His voice was filled with frustration. "What is it with you and marriage? Don't you have any self-worth?" he exclaimed. "You need to find happiness and fulfillment within yourself before you can find it with a man. How can you show someone how to treat you right if you don't know what makes you truly happy?" "I'm sorry, Oluchi. I do care about you, but I can't do this anymore." He paused, taking a deep breath. "I need a woman who has a vision for her life, something more than just getting married. I'm willing to support her, but she must have dreams and goals beyond being a wife." With that, he stood up and stormed out of the restaurant, leaving Oluchi alone at the table. Tears filled Oluchi's eyes as she sat down staring at a small ring in her hand. "Why am I so unlucky?" she cried, her voice choked with sadness. "Why does everything have to go wrong? After all my plans, why does he have to leave?" Her heart felt heavy. "Life has been so unfair to me," she cried softly, feeling more alone than ever. She sat there for a long time, feeling broken and frustrated, wondering if she had made a terrible mistake. Had she rushed things? Had she pushed too hard? Deep down, she was too hurt to see that maybe, just maybe, she had made a wrong choice by trying to force things. Finally, with a deep sigh, she wiped her tears, stood up, and walked home. In the days that followed, Oluchi stayed in her room, lying on her bed and staring blankly at the ceiling. She was trapped in a spiral of sadness and self-pity. She had told her sister Ugochi about what happened with Caleb, hoping for comfort. But instead, Ugochi had scolded her. "You shouldn't have proposed to him," Ugochi said. "Not all men like that." Although her sister tried to reassure her by saying that she would find another man, Oluchi didn't believe it. She knew how long she had waited for someone like Caleb, only to have him leave as quickly as he had come. One evening, as the sun began to set, Oluchi stood by her window looking out into the garden. She saw Ugochi and Chima playing and laughing together in the pool, splashing water at each other like carefree children. They looked so happy, so perfect and so in love. The sight of their joy hit Oluchi like a punch to her chest. A wave of anger washed over her so strong that she had to grip the window's wheel to steady herself. She had been trying so hard to push these feelings away, to pretend like she didn't care. But it seemed impossible. The picture of the happy couple was stuck in her mind, and no matter what she did, it wouldn't go away. Jealousy and anger filled her heart like a storm brewing inside her. That night, she tossed and turned in her bed, unable to find peace. Sleep seemed like a distant dream. Finally feeling restless and frustrated, she decided to go downstairs to the bar. Maybe a few glasses of alcohol will help me sleep, she thought, trying to convince herself. She sat in the bar and poured herself a glass and drank it quickly, feeling the liquid burn down her throat. She was just about to pour a second glass when she heard footsteps coming from behind. She turned and saw Chima walking towards the bar. He looked surprised to see her, but then sat down beside her and poured himself a drink. For a moment, there was only silence between them. a thick tension hanging in the air. "So, why are you not sleeping?" he finally asked, his voice quiet. Oluchi looked at him, her eyes narrowing. She wasn't sure whether to feel surprised, angry, or both. "I thought we were going to pretend like we didn't know each other forever," she said bitterly. Chima glanced at her, his face softening with what looked like pity. "I'm sorry," he said gently. "I'm so sorry, Oluchi." Oluchi felt her anger flare up. "Do you think just saying sorry is enough?" she snapped. "Chima, I loved you. You told me you loved me too. I thought we had something real, and then you just vanished without a word." Tears began to stream down her face, and her voice broke with emotion. Chima sighed, looking down at his drink. "I did love you," he said, his voice low. "But I had to leave. It wasn't my choice though. I wanted to stay and be a farmer, like you know. But my father forced me to come to the city and learn a trade. I was so young back then, and I couldn't go against his wishes." He paused, taking a deep breath. "I don't regret it now, but back then it broke my heart. I wanted you to know that. I'm truly sorry." Oluchi stared at him for a moment, her face twisted in confusion and hurt. "I don't believe you," she said quietly. "If you loved me, then why didn't you stop the marriage process when you found out that Ugochi was my sister?" Chima looked pained. "Everything happened so fast," he said. "I never stopped thinking about you, but I thought you had probably moved on and married someone else. When I met Ugochi at the market that day, she reminded me so much of you, and I fell in love with her instantly." He paused, his voice softening. "I love your sister very much." At his words, Oluchi felt a fresh surge of anger rise in her chest. "But I still love you," she blurted out, her eyes pleading. Chima's expression changed and he gently shushed her. "Oluchi," he said quietly, "how can you love me? I'm your sister's husband. You have to understand. You have to move on. I am married now." "But you loved me first," Oluchi cried, her voice filled with desperation. Chima shook his head, his face looking tired and sad. "Please, don't make this harder for me," he said softly. "I am married to your sister, and what we had, it's over." He finished his drink quickly and stood up, his shoulder heavy with the weight of the situation. "Good night," he murmured, turning to leave. Oluchi watched him walk away, her heart pounding painfully in her chest. She felt lost, like the ground beneath her feet was crumbling away. Everything felt wrong and she didn't know what to do. She stayed at the bar staring at her empty glass, feeling the tears well up in her eyes once more. Life felt so unfair and she couldn't help but wonder if things would ever get better for her. Early the next morning, Chima gently woke Ugochi, his face filled with concern. "I don't think it's a good idea for Oluchi to stay here any longer," he said quietly. "She doesn't seem happy, and I think it might be better if she goes back to the village. Or we could find her a place to live in the city and maybe help her start a small business, if that's what she wants." Ugochi looked up at her husband, frowning slightly. "Nkem," she replied softly. "Oluchi is my only sister. She needs me right now. She's going through a heartbreak and just needs some time to heal. Our house is big enough and we still have plenty of rooms." She paused, her eyes narrowing a little. "Oh, do you have a problem with her staying here?" she asked, a hint of suspicion creeping into her voice. Chima quickly shook his head. "Ah, no, not at all," he said, his voice a little too fast. "She can't stay. It's fine." As the days passed, Oluchi watched her sister and Chima enjoy their life together. They seemed so perfect, cooking meals side by side, playing around the house, whispering secrets and bursting into laughter at every little joke. Each happy moment they shared was like a sharp needle piercing Oluchi's heart, making something tighten inside her. With every smile, every laugh, her hatred for her sister grew stronger. "This should have been me," Oluchi would whisper to herself, her teeth clenched in frustration. "Look at everything she's enjoying. She took my man away, and now she has the nerve to show him off right in front of me. Who the hell does she think she is?" She could feel the anger bubbling inside her like a boiling pot. "I'll deal with her," she muttered under her breath. That evening, as she stood in the kitchen stirring the pot for dinner, her anger boiled over. "Imagine me," she thought bitterly, "cooking and slaving for my younger sister in what should have been my house with my own man. She took him from me, and now she's living the life that was meant for me." A dark idea began to take shape in her mind. She had tried to make advances towards Chima, hoping he would notice her, but he had rejected her every time, not even glancing her way. She felt a cold determination rising within her. "I will make her pay," she thought. "She can't always be happy while I'm miserable. She can't have everything while I have nothing." The next morning, Oluchi approached Ugochi with a smile. "Sister," she began, her voice sweet, "I've been thinking. I want to visit the village for a little while, just to see Mama and make sure she's doing well." Ugochi's face lit up with happiness. "That's a wonderful idea," she exclaimed. "I'm sure Mama would love to see you." She immediately started packing a bag of gifts, clothes, food, and other items to send to their mother. Ugochi was delighted at the thought of her sister going to visit their mother, unaware that Oluchi had a completely different plan brewing in her mind. Oluchi had left the city for a distant place, far away, and was gone for about 2 weeks. When she finally returned, everything seemed different, as if the air itself was heavier with some strange tension. Nothing was the same anymore. One morning, Ugochi woke up to the sound of laughter coming from the kitchen. Curious, she got up and made her way downstairs. To her surprise, she found Oluchi and Chima standing side by side, cooking breakfast, chatting and laughing like old friends. This sight sent a jolt through her. She knew very well that her husband and Oluchi had never been close. In fact, they barely spoke to each other. She didn't understand why, but neither of them had explained it to her. Now, they were acting as if they had been best of friends forever, and she felt a chill run down her spine. When Ugochi walked into the kitchen, they continued their playful conversation, pretending she wasn't even there. It was as if she had become invincible to them, and she couldn't understand what was going on. She stood there, her heart pounding, watching them with a mix of confusion and horror. After Chima left the kitchen, Ugochi tried to confront Oluchi, her voice trembling with concern and confusion. "Oluchi, what's going on? Why are you acting like this? What are you doing with my husband?" she asked, her eyes searching her sister's face for any sign of an answer. But Oluchi completely ignored her, acting as if no one was speaking. It was like Ugochi's words fell on deaf ears. Ugochi felt her chest tighten with fear and uncertainty. Am I imagining things? She wondered, trying to calm herself down. She decided to wait and see, not wanting to jump to conclusions. Later that night, as the house grew quiet and dark, Ugochi woke up at midnight and noticed that her husband wasn't beside her. This was unusual. Feeling worried, she decided to go look for him. Probably he could be at the bar. As she moved through the dimly lit hallway, she heard soft laughter coming from Oluchi's room. Her heart began to race, and with a sense of dread, quietly she pushed open the door. Her worst fears came to life before her eyes. There on the bed lay her sister Oluchi with her husband Chima. They were tangled in each other's arms, laughing and kissing as if nothing else in the world mattered. Oluchi, Ugochi screamed, her voice filled with shock and pain. "What are you doing with my husband?" But instead of feeling guilty or ashamed, Oluchi and Chima only laughed louder, continuing to exchange kisses as if they were mocking her. Ugochi felt as if the ground had been ripped out beneath her. She couldn't believe what she was seeing. Tears streamed down her face as she rushed forward, trying to pull her sister away. "Stop this! What's going on?" she cried. But Chima turned to her with a fierce glare. "You dare not touch her," he shouted, his voice filled with anger. "I want a child, and you've refused to give me one." "Look here, Ugochi. I love Oluchi, and she's the one I want to be with now." Ugochi felt her whole body shudder. Chima had never raised his voice at her before, never shown her such anger, and he never openly showed that he was worried about their childlessness. In fact, he was the one who would always comfort her. His words hit her like sharp blades, cutting deep into her heart. She stared at them, stunned as the reality of the situation began to sink in. The sudden closeness between her sister and her husband felt wrong and unnatural. How could Chima, who couldn't stand Oluchi, suddenly become entangled with her? Her heart felt like it was breaking into 1,000 pieces, and she turned and quietly left the room, unable to bear the sight any longer. She had never thought in her wildest dreams that her own sister could hurt her this deeply. That night, she couldn't sleep. She lay in bed, tears soaking her pillow, crying until she felt numb. Everything she believed in had shattered, and she didn't know how she would ever recover from this betrayal. For weeks, she stayed, hoping that Chima would come back to his right senses. But this didn't happen. Oluchi and Chima seemed completely inseparable. At home, they were always side by side, whispering, laughing, and sharing private moments. Oluchi even followed Chima to his shop every day, as if they couldn't stand to be apart even for a moment. Ugochi could only sit back, her heart breaking more each day as she watched this strange and painful sight unfold before her eyes. One evening, Chima came into the living room with a bright smile on his face. "Oluchi is pregnant," he announced with excitement, his eyes shining with joy. Oluchi stood beside him, her hand resting on her stomach, a proud smile on her face. She seemed happy, not caring about the pain she was causing her own sister. All she wanted was to be happy, no matter who got hurt in the process. Finally, she was going to have a child before her sister. Ugochi felt something inside her shatter at this news. Her heart clenched with agony and she rushed towards Oluchi, her face wet with tears. "No, Oluchi, tell me I am dreaming. You can't do this to me. We are sisters. What on earth have I done to you? Why would you choose my husband of all men?" she cried out, her voice breaking. Oluchi pushed her away with a fierce look in her eyes. "What have you not done to me, Ugochi? That should be the real question." She spat back, her voice sharp and angry. "You took all the beauty. You were everyone's sweetheart, and still I was okay with it. All these years, I've walked in your shadow, hidden and overlooked, while everything was always about you. It's either Ugochi this or Ugochi that. And then, to make it worse, you took my man. Ugochi Chima was my first love." "What?" Ugochi gasped, holding her head as if it would prevent it from falling, her eyes wide with shock. Her whole body began to tremble as she fell to the floor sobbing bitterly. "Why didn't you tell me any of this all these years? Why did you stay silent? Is that why Chima never wanted you around?" She paused, her face filled with regret and pain. "I should have listened to him. I should have listened to everyone, but I was blinded by my love for you ungrateful thing." Her sorrow turned to anger as she stood up, her voice filled with determination. "Now you will leave my home," she commanded. Chima, who had been silent all this while, suddenly rushed to Oluchi's side, wrapping his arms protectively around her. "She goes nowhere," he shouted. "If anyone should leave, it should be you." Ugochi felt as if her whole world had crumbled. It was like a bad dream she couldn't wake up from. Was this the same Chima? The sweet man that she had been married to for years? As she stood there, her legs were shaking and her whole body shivered. She realized that this was a lost game. The betrayal was so deep and raw, and she couldn't stay in that house for another day. Early the next morning, Ugochi packed her things, her heart heavy with sorrow, as she headed back to the village. Tears streamed down her cheeks for the entire journey. When she arrived, her mother Adanne was there to greet her. Ugochi had called ahead to say she was coming home, but she hadn't shared the painful reason why. When Ugochi finally told her everything, Adanne's face turned dark with anger. "Tofiakwa," she spat in disbelief. "The gods forbid this. How could Oluchi do such a thing to you? You have shown her nothing but love, always supporting her as a sister. How could she betray you like this? I won't allow this to happen. Not while I am still alive." Adanne immediately began calling Oluchi, dialing her phone number over and over, but Oluchi refused to answer. Finally, one morning, Adanne decided to go to the city herself, taking Ugochi with her. She was determined to talk some sense into Oluchi to make her see reasons. But when they arrived, all her efforts proved useless. "Chima wants a child and I'm pregnant for him," Oluchi said coldly, her eyes showing no remorse. Adanne's face twisted with fury. "Will you shut up?" she shouted. "Why don't you give a child to other childless families since you now think you are God, the giver of children? I did not raise you to be like this, Oluchi. Why must it be your sister's husband? Why?" Oluchi stared back at her mother, her face unmovable, her eyes hard as stone. Adanne felt a chill run through her, seeing how cold and unyielding her daughter had become. How could she have given birth to such a heartless child? "Listen, Oluchi," Adanne said, her voice firm as she beat her chest. "I am your mother, and I tell you this, since you have chosen to do this wickedness to your own sister. You see this marriage, you will reap nothing but pain as your reward. This drum you are beating, be prepared to dance to its rhythm." Oluchi remained unfazed, a small smirk on her face. "Mama, "I can dance," she replied, her tone defiant. "You of all people knows that I can dance very well." Adanne turned to Ugochi, who stood there crying beside her, and gently wiped her tears. "Ozugbo, it's enough. Let's go," she said quietly. "He who fetches a termite-infested stick has invited the lizards to a feast." With these words, Adanne and Ugochi left, their hearts heavy with grief, leaving Oluchi behind with the choices she had made. Oluchi was thrilled that she finally had a man all to herself. She and Chima lived as if nothing had happened, as if there were no betrayal or broken hearts left behind. Oluchi took over her sister's shop, selling beads and jewelry, and it seemed like everything was falling into place for her. She was convinced that life had turned in her favor. As the months passed, her belly grew with the child she carried, and soon she was due for delivery. One afternoon, she went into labor. The pains came suddenly, sharp and intense, and Chima quickly rushed her to the hospital. But things took a terrible turn. Days passed and Oluchi continued screaming in agony as the baby refused to come. The doctors did everything they could, but nothing seemed to work. What puzzled them most was that Oluchi was healthy and fit for delivery. There was no medical reason why the baby wasn't coming. It was as if something unseen was holding the child back. As the hours turned into days, Oluchi's condition worsened. She was in unbearable pain, her life slipping away with every passing minute. Chima was desperate and frightened, his mind racing. He didn't know what else to do. In his panic, he grabbed his phone and called Adanne, his mother-in-law, his voice filled with fear and desperation as he pleaded, "Mama, please come to the city. Oluchi is dying." Adanne was still angry with Oluchi for everything she had done, but she couldn't bear the thought of her daughter dying. The idea of losing Oluchi, despite all the pain she had caused, tore her heart. She knew she would never forgive herself if anything happened to her. She had to act. She went to find Ugochi, who had remained quiet and distant since their return to the village. Ugochi was now heavily pregnant with a child, a discovery she had made after she left the city. The betrayal by Oluchi still stung deeply, and she doubted she could ever truly forgive her sister. But Adanne's pleas reached deep into her heart. "She is your sister," her mother said softly, "and you cannot watch her die. If we repay evil with evil, we become no different from the wicked. This shows that the gods knows that your hands are clean, and they have decided to fight for you. You two are my only children, and Oluchi needs us now." Ugochi felt a conflict in her heart, torn between her pain and her love for her sister. She knew that her mother was right. She knew she had to rise above her hurt to show kindness, even when she felt broken. So, she nodded slowly, wiping away her tears. "All right, Mama," she whispered, even though her heart was heavy. For over 7 days, Oluchi had been in labor, writhing in pain, her cries echoing through the hospital halls. The pain seemed endless, and the longer it went on, the weaker she became. When her mother and sister finally arrived, Oluchi felt a wave of relief wash over her. She grabbed Ugochi's hand tightly, her grip weak and trembling, as if she were holding on for her dear life. Her breath was shallow, her face pale, and her eyes filled with fear. "I'm sorry, Ugo," she whispered, her voice breaking with emotion. "You've been nothing but good to me, but I was blinded by jealousy. Please forgive me," she pleaded, tears streaming down her face. "I don't want to die. I'm scared." I have something to confess. I used charms on Chima. He doesn't know what he's doing. Please, find it in your heart to forgive me and also forgive him. He is your husband. Mama, please forgive me. Her words became softer and softer until they stopped altogether, and her eyes closed as she lost consciousness. Adanne and Ugochi screamed in fear and pain, their hearts breaking as they watched Oluchi slip away. The doctors rushed to help her, doing everything they could to bring her back. Meanwhile, Chima's eyes, now clear and free from the influence of the charms, were filled with tears. He realized the gravity of what had happened and held Ugochi tightly, his voice shaking as he begged for her forgiveness. Ugochi felt anger burning inside her, but seeing her sister in so much pain tore at her heart. She didn't want Oluchi to die. The sight of her suffering hurt deeply, and she whispered prayers to the gods, asking them to spare her sister's life. I know you hurt me, she whispered, her voice filled with emotion. But I forgive you. Hours passed, feeling like eternity as they waited for the news. The doctors worked tirelessly, and finally, they were able to revive Oluchi. But the baby she had been carrying was lost. The room was filled with a mix of relief and sorrow. Oluchi, weak and exhausted, felt a deep sense of shame. She couldn't even bring herself to look at her sister or Chima. She had done so much wrong, yet Ugochi had still forgiven her and stayed by her side. She realized just how special Ugochi was and how deeply she had wronged her. Feeling humbled and broken, Oluchi decided to return to the village with her mother. She had learned a hard, bitter lesson. She knew now that she needed to take time for herself, to discover who she was without comparing herself to her sister or anyone. She had nearly lost her life and knew she was lucky to have a second chance. She understood that she needed to find happiness in herself and in the small, simple things around her. Although her sister had forgiven her, Oluchi knew that things could never be exactly the same again. Meanwhile, Ugochi also forgave Chima, recognizing that he too had been under a spell and wasn't fully himself. Not long after, she gave birth to twins, a healthy baby boy and girl. The challenges they had faced brought Ugochi and Chima closer together, strengthening their bond, and they vowed that nothing would ever break them apart again. They embraced their new life with joy, and together their lives flourished. They supported each other through every trial and every joy, and they truly lived happily ever after. Hey besties, thank you for watching this amazing story, and I hope you enjoy it as much as we did enjoy making it. I would like you to share your lessons in the comment section, and if you are yet to subscribe to this channel, please hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so that you get notified whenever we post new stories. Thank you for all your amazing support. They mean a lot to me, and I do not take them for granted. Right now, I will have to go and see you in our next story.